Tucker Carlson came for a massive event in Western Canada, inviting Danielle Smith to come talk with him, and some other unexpected guests came along. And I'll tell you what, I'm tuckered out. Marty, we have a fun couple of days, did we ever? Holy cow, so much that your internet sucks now.
Actually, I'm looking at the picture and I know I'm fuzzy, so my internet is slow right now, but it's also symbolic of the brain fog that I have. Yes, we had a whirlwind day. It was absolutely fantastic. If I call you by somebody else's name tonight, that's how kind of tired I am and how much talking we did. Like, we talked to so many of your viewers came out to see us, and some of my followers, and what a fantastic all around day yesterday. I'm still pumped from that one. I'm vibrating right now. And then today's an equally good day. I mean, it's yeah.
It was really good. It was such a good event. I'm going to show, obviously I have pictures of it here. We had here in, sorry, not here because I'm back home in British Columbia now, but we're in Calgary. And yeah, big showing for the Tucker Carlson show. I'll leave a link in the description down below so people can view this. This is the speech that Tucker had made when he first came out. This is really great. I had to skip the intro because it's obviously copywritten music, but here's him coming out for the first time.
Thank you truly for having me. Wow, that was the wildest intro I've had ever. Someone just gave me this t-shirt, which I just love so much. I'm actually going to wear it in the privacy of my own home. Al freaking Berta, baby.
So it was an amazing event, and then they went off after, because there was how many thousands of people at the TELUS Conference Center in Calgary, and then their entourage of guest speakers and Tucker all went out to Edmonton afterwards to an even larger audience. This is really something else. So 8,000 people at a stadium, and the Rogers Place Stadium in Edmonton. What a showing. It was amazing. And then
Trudeau's never pulled a crowd like that. Like Trudeau's never pulled a crowd like that. None of our politicians ever pull crowds like that. That's impressive.
It really is impressive. It really is. And of course, Jordan Peterson also showing up, and it was just really something else. Conrad Black didn't speak at the event in Calgary. I'm not sure if he did at the other event in Edmonton, but he was also part of that entourage. It was, yeah, definitely something else. And then afterwards, Marty and I both put invites out to everybody on the channel. If you happen to be in the area, we were gonna do a meet and greet, and we went to one of the bars in town, and it was really busy when we got there. We were wondering, well, how many people are actually here to see us? It turned out it was a whole bar. It was, it was really a great time. It was a lot of fun. So if we have any more of these events where we get together, I'm happy to do these get-togethers, the meetups, because so many awesome people came out. I'm still beaming from just how well it went, and then and how well behaved everybody was at this whole thing. So nothing but good things to say about everybody that came out.
Yeah. But let's tell a bit more about the event, right? So we did go to the Calgary event. So Tucker came out on stage and spoke for about 30 minutes, 25, 30 minutes. I found him very what's the word? He energized me, and I've been unapologetic about politics. You and I have both been that way.
Mm-hmm.
We feel that in Canada we're being attacked and our governments aren't taking us seriously. And Tucker really reminded us of that. Like, to me, he really reminded us. And in fact, he energized me, and he made me mad, not mad at him, but mad at what's happening in our country. So it was, it's a reminder that our battle and what we do here has to keep going, because there's still people that are asleep. Then after that, the really fun, I like the next part of the evening. So Jordan Peterson made a surprise visit. I didn't even know Jordan was going to be on stage. So Tucker was on stage with Jordan Peterson, and it was what do you call it, hosted by Brett Wilson, I guess. It was the not quite a mediator.
It was like an MC
what
kind of
Brett did
thing.
is
That
he
was
would
good.
just, yeah, he was an MC, and he would just throw out a question. He would just say, you know, hey, well, he asked Tucker and Jordan to limit their answers to 2 sentences. So he'd say something like immigration. And so and then they'd have to answer in 2 sentences. And so for the first few questions, yeah, they succeeded in answering in 2 sentences, but Jordan Peterson can't help himself. You know, the next thing you know, he's waxing. Man, that guy's brilliant. Like, he can formulate an answer, you know. And so I want to find his answers, because he had a couple of really good answers. You know, one question he was asked WEF, the World Economic Forum, and I thought his answer to that was brilliant. And then of course at the end there was then the highlight of the night was Danielle Smith, the Premier of Alberta, coming on stage and talking to Tucker. I was a little disappointed by that, but I understand. You know, today, based on what's happening today, I understand. You know, to me last night it felt like Danielle took a little bit of a step back, because to be honest, right now, she's doing fantastic things, right? She's on a winning streak. She's doing fantastic things. So a chat, and there was some opposition. Like, there are people who tried to cancel Tucker and the show. So meeting with him was for her to lose. You know, she could have. She didn't benefit too much. She said she wanted to meet with him to share our message about Alberta with the U.S. Granted, but you know, let's think about it. She was meeting with a friendly crowd of converted people who believe in her. So she didn't need to do this to win our hearts and minds. She's already got them. But she could have, you know, she acknowledged that there was a couple of CBC people in the room, and what are they there for? They're hoping to get that weird soundbite that they can turn against her. They didn't get the soundbite, but boy, they still turned against her today. So,
well, yeah, I mean, that was to be expected. I know. One thing I did respect for Tucker to bring up was the Coots 4 right at the very beginning, and I understand her position on that. And they've already attacked her. Anytime she gets involved with anybody who's going through the judicial system, even just talking to them on the telephone, not even saying anything really interfering at all, but they want to go in that direction. So she obviously had to say, well, she's not allowed to be any part of that. And she's obviously walking on eggshells with the media over that kind of a situation.
She's holding herself to a very high standard, which is great, right? She's holding herself to a very high standard, which we need in this country at this time right now, because there's hundreds of other politicians that are not holding themselves to that standard at all, and we saw that today too. I mean, we're going to get to that. So,
well, it's interesting that, you know, that standard is applied by the media only in one direction, and that's what's really unfair, and that's what a lot of people are seeing about being unfair in Canada. And I mean, for her to have the guts to come out and have questions like that asked to her, you got to give her kudos for that. Basically, you know, showing her juggler to as someone who's not shy. He's not shy to ask tough questions, and it was really good of Tucker to do that.
In fact, it was a great question. And I'll say this: I don't like our system. I don't like. To me personally, I think the premier of the province or the prime minister of the country should be able to ask those kinds of tough, questions. She should have been able to answer what he asked. He asked bluntly, "How come you haven't gone to Coots, or not to Coots, to talk to those guys?"
Yeah,
because they're almost 2 years without a proper bail hearing. They haven't even, you know, they were charged 2 years ago, and there's no trial, nothing. It's like they're literally political prisoners. And I believe that the prime minister or the premier of this country should be able to pick up the phone, call somebody, whether it's the attorney general of Canada, and say, "Hey, what the frick is going on?" So It was a good question. I understand her answer, but I'm not happy with her answer, because to me, I'd want her to interfere, but now she can't interfere because maybe we're jumping all over the place, but the former Attorney General of Canada quit today.
Well, we're gonna get back to that. I wanted
call?
to show how the media was actually portraying this, and this is a clip from CP24, and this is what makes me upset when I hear the representation from this, because they say it in such an innocuous way, but it's such an assault with the truth of the situation.
Alberta Premier Danielle Smith sharing the stage in Calgary last night with American right-wing news commentator Tucker Carlson. Carlson, who's been accused of defending a white supremacist theory and spreading misinformation about everything from the war in Ukraine to the COVID-19 vaccine, was fired by Fox News last year. Some experts are raising questions about the meeting between Carlson and Premier Smith.
So right away, out of the gates, he says Tucker has been accused of some white supremacist thing. Why don't you say that it's his political opposition that's wielded this unfounded accusation, but they just say it as if it's truth. And this is what really upsets me about media, the way they conduct themselves. It's completely unethical to start off a conversation like that in any right when you're describing a person. Now, they brought in some pundit to talk about the situation here, and this is what she had to say.
Hero of the people who are voiceless, like what they call the silent majority, and that silent majority here in Canada as well. And there's a very intact link between American that base and the base that's here in Canada. So when we think about that, this is not something that is separated by a border. And Tucker Carlson has been making this one of his conversational pieces, talking about the individuals that were arrested at Coots for the arms charges, and really rallying to the fact that they're political prisoners here in Canada. This is a theme and a trope that's really powerful in America, which can be very powerful for a conservative movement here.
Well, it's not a trope. It's not a trope. They are being held without bail. I mean, they're in remand. They're not charged with any crimes as of yet, and they haven't seen trial. And this is ridiculous. We're guaranteed a speedy trial 2 years later, and not even close.
You're innocent until proven guilty, and you have the opportunity to defend yourself against allegations. And these guys are being denied everything. There's no bail, no hearing, no court. No strategy, no look at the evidence, nothing. Like, they're literally just political prisoners at this point.
Absolutely.
I mean,
there's no other way around it.
There's no other way around it. There's no other way around it. So, no, it's shameful how the media, but it's a bigger story. I mean, at this very moment in Canadian history, the left is losing their mind right now, and they're going to use every imaginable trick to try and discredit the right, or whatever they want to call us. They'll call us populists. They'll call us extremists. They'll call us everything. They are losing big time the battle right now, and they're in panic mode. I mean, I see all of this, and I actually laugh more than a year ago I would have cringed, but now I laugh. I mean, those people just look desperate,
Well, no, they'll call us violent. Yeah. This is another thing that they're doing. Here's a clip of Stephen Guilbeault in his response. Actually,
before you go to that, I know you were. I kind of suspected you were going to cue this one up. That was something that Tucker brought up yesterday, right? Tucker, when I said I got mad a little bit thinking about it, Tucker made a really good point, and I've said this on the show. The Liberals are an existential threat to us, and none more than Stephen Guilbeault. And what Tucker told us yesterday is make fun of these guys, make fun, expose them, but also fight them, because they're fighting us. They're fighting us hard. And so now you're going to queue up Stephen Guilbeault. Stephen got his feelings hurt because we said we're going to fight him, is basically what he said today.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's how he defines that.
I mean, this goes beyond me and the fact that I was targeted last night at this event. This increases political violence against everyone who runs for office in this country, whether they're doing it at the municipal level, at the provincial level, or at the federal level. As my friend and colleague Randy said, like, we can have differences of opinion. We can bang our fist on the table when we meet. We can have strong disagreement, but to incite violence against people who disagree with you, that's not how things should be done in Canada.
Can you clarify what is the violence? What is the violence? I think the minister also said this in French. What is the violence that they are bringing to Canada? What is the political violence that you're talking about? Just to be very clear.
Well, to put a target on someone's back, for example.
What is the evil?
To put someone in crosshairs.
Say they're bringing here.
I mean, spewing hate speech about LGBTQ people, trying to bring the kind of division that they have in the United States north of the border. MAGA-style conservatism has no place in Canada, and it's trying to reach through our borders. And as Minister Rodriguez has said, conservative premiers, instead of doing their jobs, are trying to invite this wave of populism. And I can tell you, it's making newcomers nervous and fearful. People in the LGBTQ community don't feel safe. We have people who want to run for office that take a look at what happened last night in Edmonton and say, why bother? And that is not good for the political comments.
It's not true, is what it is.
It's totally, yeah. He's upset because you know what it is. He's a bully, and so when you push back against a bully, bullies will be the first one to claim to be victims. Stephen Guilbeault's a bully, and yesterday Albertans, 10,000 of them in Edmonton and 5,000 in Calgary, said, "We're not going to take your bullying." That's it. That's all we said, man. We didn't put a target on his back or aim guns at him or
made fun of him,
throw eggs. We'll make fun of him. He's a lunatic. By the way, he's a lunatic. He's a lunatic who climbed the CN Tower to make a statement and got arrested for it. He's a lunatic who went to our premier's house, Ralph Klein, and he pulled a stunt at Ralph Klein's house. So he's a lunatic. He's a hypocrite. And Tucker was bringing up some great points. I mean, yes, everybody's got to go listen to Tucker because like Tucker is highlighting how did Canada end up with a guy like him in the powerful position that he's in? How did Chrystia Freeland get into this position that she's in? How did Trudeau get into the position? I mean, these people have like zero fucking skills. Forgive my French, but and we're calling them out now. We're calling them out. Yeah.
Well, I've got a clip of
Guilbeault won't show up. That's good. If he's scared to show up in Alberta, good.
So I've got a clip of Tucker talking about Chrystia Freeland, and now he talked about her at the event we were at, but I got footage from the other event that we were in attendance at. But this is what he had to say about her.
And I know a lot about this because I knew Chrystia Freeland when she, was a journalist at the Financial Times, whose name shall forever live in infamy for employing her. And I remember even then thinking, this woman is not bright at all. But boy, does she have high self-esteem. I don't think I've ever even seen it's off this. I don't know what the self-esteem measurement scale is, the Richter scale. But her self-esteem was literally unassailable. It was bomb-proof. If a nuclear bomb dropped on your town, you could hide beneath Chrystia Freeland's self-esteem and live.
Wow. And this is the kind of ridicule that he's encouraging. And I like it. Yeah. So some people love what I do on my channel. Some people don't like it. I get the comments either way. I tend to try to see the humor in everything. And, these are dark times and we're dealing with really dark situation here. But finding the humor and ridiculing and using that as a tool is always a great method. And I felt really emboldened by the words that Tucker had to say yesterday by saying, encourage that. No, we should make fun of them. Yep. They are being ridiculous, so they are deserving of ridicule.
Yep. No, that's bang on. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. We have to be unapologetic. The time to be nice is gone. We gotta expose them for just how ridiculous they are. I mean, it's every day. It's a new joke. It's a new joke every day. I mean. Yeah, let's move on.
Well, before we do, I got one more ridicule thing, and this is from Vesper. Okay. We're all familiar with Vesper. He's been on the channel, and he's always got the best tweets. He encourages people to just rip his tweets and post them as their own. But he put this video together. This was also at that same conference when the reporters weren't having it. They were not having what these guys were saying, and they asked, well, what about the divide that you're sowing?
divide by coming out here and comparing Poilievre to this and making this about him? Are you not contributing to the divide by doing that? If your government has been accused,
we're not comparing Poilievre to him. I think what
You're not? Have you looked at your own advertising?
Have you looked at your own advertising lately? It's nothing but Pierre Poilievre is literally Donald Trump. It's completely bonkers. And then they come out and they say that they're not being divisive. It's them that's being divisive. What you see in at events like what we went to yesterday was it was completely inclusive. The people that were there, everyone was Canadian. Everyone had that as a value. There was a whole mix of different people from different walks and everything.
And remember, at the beginning of the before the show, when we walked in, we had time to socialize and meet people. And so I'm a Calgarian, right? And I'm an oil patch guy, so I know a lot of people, right? So I introduced you to a lot of people. Who did I introduce you to? I actually introduced you to the president of an oil company. That guy's not an idiot, right? He's not a radical. He's the president of an oil company. Eva Chipyuk was there, and she introduced us to a handful of lawyers. We met independent journalists. We met people from every walk of life. And they want to label us like, well, some of the Edmonton folks went really berserk today, saying, oh, this is an embarrassment to Alberta. I wish that Danielle hadn't done this. I'm like, piss off. Like, what do you think Albertans are? We were Albertans there yesterday. We're common sense Albertans. And there was 15,000 went to see Tucker. And yeah, we're not hillbilly rednecks or whatever. Like it was a well-dressed, sophisticated crowd.
Absolutely.
That booed whenever the word CBC was mentioned. That was funny.
Great.
That was funny.
I like how at the end Tucker actually challenged the CBC to interview him backstage and air it. He said, "I'll be available, and I challenge you to air what you hear from me."
Yeah, I mean, people want to hate on Jordan Peterson. I get that, right? But come on, you can't say Jordan Peterson is an idiot. He's a pretty sophisticated academic, right? And smart as hell. Conrad Black was on stage. Again, you don't have to like Conrad Black, and he's done a few things in his life that maybe we don't all agree with, but at the end of the day, the guy's a pretty solid man. Like newspapers and business and money and influence and academics and how many honorary diplomas or doctorates does Conrad Black have? I bet you he's got a dozen of them. So, and real degrees, unlike Prime Minister Trudeau. Yeah, like wow.
Speaking of people not being able to come to agreements, Canada is not coming to any agreement with Britain, one of our biggest trading partners. I think in the history of us being a nation, we're having struggles with them right now. The Food Processor on Twitter, great account, go follow him. Yep. He's put this out there saying Britain has temporarily halted trade negotiations with Canada due to an ongoing disagreement related to Canadian market access for cheese and hormone-treated beef and pork exports to Britain. We have a strong affection for less than stellar dairy products. That's true, but it also has to do with basically the dairy lobby. It's like it's the cartel of Canada. I mean, it's like Mexico has their cartels for narco stuff. We have dairy cartels. Ottawa enacted a new law that makes it illegal to negotiate a new agreement with any other country that would increase dairy product imports into Canada. This legislation was unanimous support. It had unanimous support from all political parties. Like, where are we in Canada when that's the case?
This is again one of those crazy examples where Canada, when we say Canada is no longer a serious country, this is an example of that, right? I mean, this is England used to be part of the European Union, so then they got out of it, 4 or 5 years ago, and so they're independent, and so England is renegotiating trade agreements with everybody, and they announced that we're not serious. They're not going to. Their ambassador or whoever spoke, he basically said Canada's not serious. That's exactly what he said. We're not negotiating in good faith. We're off to a bad start with these laws. It's not called negotiation if before you start negotiation you've already excluded things. And yeah, it's we're not talking a banana republic here. We're negotiating with, one of the most sophisticated countries on the planet doesn't want to do business with us. So we're relegated to banana republic. It's no. Actually, I'm glad you went to this story, but can we go back while we were talking about politicians and stuff like that? There was a weird little story like yesterday. Did you find the clip of Ken McDonald?
Oh yeah, I did. Let me pull that one up. I have it right here. Do you want to
Let's
segue
just
into
finish on the political. Yeah. Yeah, well, just to remind people, Ken McDonald's an MP from Newfoundland. He spoke out against the Prime Minister late last year, and got slapped on the wrist, and then negotiated a deal for his own people. He was kind of at the center of the heat pump, what I call fiasco, but he benefited from the heat pump. So he spoke against the prime minister, got slapped on the wrist, and then got rewarded by an exemption on the carbon tax for his constituents. And then when there was time to vote for everybody else to get the same deal, then he voted against it. Now, yesterday, he said this, and listen to this very carefully.
Same as the rest of the country. It's there's almost a hatred out there right now for Prime Minister Trudeau.
You feel it?
Yeah, oh yeah, I hear it.
At the door?
At the doors, at events I go to, people will bring it up. Somebody will send me an email and say, like, if you're on next time, Ken, I had an email recently, and this gentleman who I've worked with in a certain organization since I've been elected, and he said, the only thing that will hurt you in the next election is your leader.
What do you think about that?
I think he's close to the sentiment of the majority of people in the country right now.
So does that mean he should go?
I think that's the decision he has.
I think he does need to go. He does need to go. And I think that he's saying the quiet part out loud for liberals, right? The liberals, they can't get reelected with Justin Trudeau as their leader.
No.
And a lot of the cabinet are done altogether, and a lot of them are just dropping, quitting because they don't see any political future.
And we'll get to that. But so Ken, so this is yesterday. So yesterday, breakdown, simply speaking, he says, yeah, I listen to my constituents. They're sending me emails. They're talking to me, and they're all telling me that they don't like Trudeau, and it's time for Trudeau to go. Now, did he act on what his constituents told him? No, because today he retracted that story. So again, he got a phone call in the night from Justin Trudeau, and I don't know what the hell was said in the phone call, but today Ken McDonald retracted that story in a piece by with the CBC. So I'm like, so you're told what the problem is, but you're ignoring your constituents, which is bullshit. Yeah. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. I would have been, if he was a man of honor, then he'd listen to his constituents and he would defeat Trudeau. Or walk the floor or do something,
Couldn't agree with that more. I mean, if anything, that kind of just sums up politics in Canada. There is no, I mean, we vote for these leaders, but then they don't follow us as constituents. They're not representing us. They're representing some small elite group in Ottawa that has not our interests in mind. They have this grandiose plan for a future Canada that's post-national, whatever Trudeau's idealism or ideology is. That doesn't match what we want as a country at all.
No. And Ken, when I've heard him talk a few times, he sounds like a nice old man who's common sense. I bet you he could get reelected instantly if he did the right thing. He doesn't have to worry about him getting elected. Like if he, I bet you that guy could cross the floor and become a conservative and still get elected because he's from Avon Peninsula or whatever. Anyways, just I'm trying to bring that back to the other big event that happened, and we had Tucker, but let's not forget. I mean, the big event, like if we hadn't gone to Tucker, you and I this week would be talking about court decision saying that the emergency measures enactment was illegal, and then the fallout that's happening from that. So, you know, that's what you and I would have been talking about this week, I think, if we hadn't gone to Tucker. And I think we need to talk a little bit about that. I mean, there is, you know, what I said this morning is the prime minister of this country has one big job, and that's to honor the Constitution. And our prime minister failed miserably at his most important job. He trashed the Constitution. He enacted the Emergency Measures Act because he was too stubborn to come talk to the truckers during the convoy. And what he did was illegal. I mean, so why is he still prime minister?
Well, and what came out in the POEC,
man, you know,
so
we've elected a crook.
Yeah, and what came out in the inquiry into the use of the Emergencies Act, when interviewing the PMO, the people in the office of the Prime Minister, we actually found out that they had been discussing using the Emergencies Act from the get-go, before the truckers even got to Ottawa, before they even knew what was going on. They didn't know any faces, names, didn't know anything about them, but they were already discussing this. So this was something that they had in their sights for some time. And they used this as an excuse. This wasn't something that was an emergency. It was definitely something that was an excuse. Now, I have a clip. This is a little part of the actual ruling. So I highlighted it because I thought this was really important. On the third point, well, first off, the second point was that the application was granted to the people to be granted standing in this review. Then it went on to say, it is declared that the decision to issue the proclamation and its associated regulations and order was unreasonable and ultra vires the Emergencies Act. So it was beyond the scope of what the government did. Also, number 4, it is declared that the regulations infringed on Section 2B of the Charter, and declared that the order infringed Section 8 of the Charter, and that neither infringement was justified under Section 1 of the Act, and which mirrors the CSIS Act, defining where they could actually the criteria for enacting it.
Yeah, and this is so fantastic, because I might be wrong on this one, but remember there was also Brian Peckford brought up separately a court case that the mandates violated sections of the Act, and I believe that was one of the sections that they thought was being violated was Section 8. But then the court then said, well, it's moot. So some of these things are all going to come back now. I mean, you know, this ruling is very, very, very similar. People say, oh, it doesn't mean much. Oh no, it means a lot, because, you know, if the Act is if the way the Act was enacted was wrong, then people that got charged while the Act was in force, and people whose bank accounts got frozen, now they can say, hey, you did something to me illegally, and it's gonna unravel further. You know, they're appealing this. The appeal is going to take 2 years, but it's already bad news. I mean, before Trudeau could enact this, he had to turn to his attorney general and say, hey, you know, is this legal? Can I do this? So one of the experts he turned to is a guy named what's Lemetti's first name?
David Lemetti.
David. Yeah.
This guy.
And then yesterday everybody was this guy. And then yesterday everybody was wondering why this guy suddenly deleted his Twitter account, because there was a shit ton of evidence on the Twitter account. Oh, and Jagmeet, we should post Jagmeet stuff. But then what did David Lemetti do today? He took a sword. He resigned. So
I don't know if he took a sword
under the bus by Trudeau. I don't know.
Well, he was already thrown under the bus.
Yeah, I don't know.
He was already thrown under the bus. He was shifted out of the cabinet in the last shuffle. He famously got his position because of Jody Wilson-Raybould actually wanting to go forward with prosecutions against SNC-Lavalin in that affair. And of course, I mean, many people who have watched the channel know the whole SNC-Lavalin scandal. She was shuffled out of the cabinet and out of her position as justice minister. And then this guy was brought in and he was like, no, I'll totally give him a break on this one. Like, how corrupt is this, that this is the way it goes down? Well, he was also willing to go ahead and bring this bring this Emergencies Act into play when it came to the trucker convoy.
If your viewers want an insight into how these people think, go read his resignation letter. So David Milletti wrote an ode to himself today as his resignation letter. I'm the greatest person ever. These are my accomplishments, but unfortunately, I have to quit. Dude, I'll write your resignation letter for you, and that ain't you're not gonna like what you're gonna be remembered for. My God, like these people are so.
The level of narcissism in that. I especially like this little clip from the resignation letter. I served as minister during an extraordinary time, pandemic and occupation of the border crossings in downtown Ottawa, necessitating the invocation of the Emergencies Act. The judge just ruled that it was not necessary, and went on to say that he during the pandemic and the occupation required balancing the protections of the charter with the rule of law. Are you kidding me? He infringed on 2 sections of the charter in one failed swoop. I mean, this guy is a would-be tyrant, just like Justin Trudeau. It really is disgusting how bad he did. I mean, and I can only do this by showing just what he thinks he has the power to do. And this is another great clip from Vesper on Twitter.
Are you saying that, what's that recourse for that Canadian citizen? And are you saying, well, we just have to, the government's giving these powers to financial institutions and then just relying on the reasonableness of it? That's the threshold? Okay, what's the recourse? I mean, look, you've just compared people who may have donated to this to the same people who are funding maybe a terrorist. I just want to be clear here, sir. This is really important. A lot of folks says, look, I just don't like your vaccine mandates and I donated to this. Now it's illegal. Should I be worried that the bank can freeze my account? What's your answer to that?
Well, I think if you are a member of a pro-Trump movement who's donating hundreds of thousands of dollars and millions of dollars to this kind of thing, then you ought to be worried.
You ought to
what
be
if you're
worried,
a Canadian citizen who donated $500 to it?
Well, I think if you're a tractor trailer owner whose employee has taken the truck and that has been sitting here in Ottawa for 3 weeks, and perhaps you gave that person permission, you may now actually lose your trucking license under this, and I think you ought to be worried about.
He's actually talking about guilt by association. This is all stuff that, like, hundreds of years ago we enshrined in law that can't be done. Like, what kind of tyrant actually goes on national television and says this kind of thing?
They remember when this was happening. Now, like, they were actually using words like "we will hunt you down." Like, that was the language they were using. You know, the chief of police in Ottawa, now that I got this power that I've been granted, I will hunt you down. They went around, they took pictures of the trucks, and that's what I mean. Like, all that stuff is illegal now because they're going to have to like, if you got a ticket for parking on the street or that was given to you, the day after the invocation of the Emergencies Act, fight that, man. That ticket is invalid. And this is just exposing these people are evil, and that's what Tucker was saying. And then people that are trying to discourage us from listening to Tucker, they're on the bad side. It's like, it's getting that point, right? There's a good side and a bad side, and if you're on the WEF and if you're on the globalist side and the liberal side, you're on the bad side, and the good side is waking up, and somebody's like, this is going to get ugly unless actually, you know what, now it's reminding me, this was my prediction. Remember at the end of the year, I had a prediction and I said, either it's going to start getting really ugly and it could get, quote unquote violent, or some people will finally come and save us. And in this case, it's a 74-year-old judge. So the judge who said this was illegal is a 74-year-old judge who's like, bullshit. I had a nice career as a judiciary, and I'm not going down at the end, and I'm not going to be remembered for the wrong reasons. I'm going to be remembered as the guy who said, no, this is wrong. Our Constitution is important, and Trudeau violated the Constitution. So it takes a few guys like that. So he'll do that. Then there might be a cop somewhere that's going to do the right thing. And then slowly we're going to regain the upper hand, and the institutions that we worked 150 years to refine are going to come and finally save us. That was my prediction, and I'm glad. So I think it's starting to happen. Yeah,
that's really good too.
So Ken McDonald, if you're listening, be that guy, man. You have nothing to lose, Ken McDonald. You were an elected MP. You got your pension. You're a nice guy. And screw whatever promise Trudeau made to you. You don't need that promise. Be an honorable man and speak out against Trudeau. That's it. That's how we win this. We need a couple of honorable men and women and podcasters.
So one thing that was actually cut off on this page, so I have the page here. It starts on 2. The first point that the judge made was about mootness, and because this is how a lot of these things have been thrown out over mootness. Now, what the judge actually did indicate, and this was conveyed by Christine from the CCF, who was actually active fighting in this case. And she was saying that the judge actually made a point to say that no, anytime you have a situation like this, by the time it gets to court, it's going to not be an emergency anymore. So of course, you're going to consider it moot, but no, the damage has been done, and this is about the law. This is about actually moving forward with the law. So don't give me this argument about mootness. Now that's great, because now this is actually enshrined in this, and hopefully lawyers can bring this argument from the judge forward in other cases when the government comes to say, oh no, it's moot. Because we saw the case that Keith Wilson was fighting with Brian Peckford against the government. They had the measures enacted until only days before the court hearing, and then they removed those measures, the travel restrictions, and then they claimed mootness. You can't do that. It really is ridiculous.
No, the whole mootness thing, you're right, is bizarre. It's kind of like, me saying, somebody steals money from me, and then there's a trial, and then suddenly I don't know, I die and say, well, we don't need to have a trial anymore. It doesn't matter because the victim's dead. It's like, well, no, there's still a trial, man. The victim, even if the victim's dead, is still entitled to justice. And yeah, you're right. That's the mootness thing can't be used, because if it becomes used, then they'll drag everything until the issue is passed, right? I mean, the Coots is perhaps an example of that. Let's just drag it out long enough so that so it'll become moot because the guys are dead in jail. Like, I'm being facetious, but
my thought about the Coots situation is, I could be wrong about this, but my thought about the Coots situation is that they're trying to wait it out until a time period comes in where they can no longer file charges, but then everything gets sealed away and you can't talk about it publicly because there'll be some sort of thing. And I think that that's probably the direction that they're trying to go, which is a gross injustice, because these men not only should be freed, but they deserve compensation for what happened to them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I hope that, you're talking sort of like a statute of limitations of some sort. And I hope that statute is not like 5 or 10 years and that those poor guys aren't going to rot there for 5 years. I hope there's some sort of statute that 2 years would make sense, right? I mean, it's extreme already, but 2 years would, to me, 2 years, you haven't made a case after 2 years, it's done. And there's the evidence in the envelope, right? Like
it's been thrown out.
See what's in there. They don't want us to see it. So
they already threw it out.
Yeah, it's been thrown out, but I'm sure if they went to trial, I'm sure it could be part of the trial. It would be to try and bring it back out during the actual trial. So
the crazy part about this, because I talked to Jason Levine about this, and there are lawyers and stuff that know what's on that, but they have gag orders. They're being told they can't speak about publicly what that was. It's ridiculous. I don't even know how to describe it anymore. But I mean, we should move on because the other big news. We still have
so many. Like, we wanted to keep it to half an hour. I'm tired, but I'm energized, and I'm like.
Well, last thing that we should talk about today before we move on and we get our rest, because we're all tuckered out, is the Bank of Canada. And of course, the Bank of Canada People had their predictions, what was going to happen with the interest rate. Well, it's they kept it. They kept it exactly where it was. They didn't move up or down. It's not moved anywhere. It's going to stay at 5%. And the market, I don't think agrees with that number. I think the number needs to go up higher if we want to have any sort of meaningful recovery. You were saying to me before we actually even hit the record button that the U.S. economy is doing okay, but we're really suffering here.
Well, like even in the Bank of Canada, yeah. So again, this is one of those stories that got buried because there was so many other big news yesterday. Actually, there's two things that happened this week. The interest they didn't announce, the Bank of Canada didn't announce the inflation numbers for January. That's funny. So instead, what they did is they gave a summary of 2023 yesterday. So we'll find out. So we're going to go an entire month without knowing what the inflation is right now.
Mm-hmm.
Then the Bank of Canada announced that they were keeping the interest rate at 5%, but then their explanation makes no sense because they literally said, yeah, inflation is stubbornly persistent. We think inflation is going to stay above 3% all the way till the end of 2024, and we don't see inflation coming under control until 2025. So those are almost their exact words. But we're going to keep interest rates the way they are. When it's contradictory. They should be increasing interest rates.
Well, they have that
fight
tool.
it harder.
They have only that one tool. I mean, that's what they have, and they're not using it.
No, and so they're not giving us any other good excuse for why they're holding it steady. And then, yes, today, and everybody in the news was like, whoa, the American economy, again, for like, I don't know, 6 quarters in a row. But they even said today they were surprised. The GDP in the U.S. climbed by 3.3% in the last quarter. That's huge, man. That's a crazy, huge number. And so the American economy is on fire. It's better than it was pre-COVID. And then again, so when you have people, when we say, oh, Canada's got high interest rate, high inflation, they love to point out that, oh, it has nothing to do with Trudeau. Everybody in the world has high inflation, high interest rate. No, they don't. The Americans have the same problems we have: supply chain issues, international trades. They had all the things that we use as an excuse, even immigration. They have it all, but somehow or other, their economy is firing on 16 cylinders. And what are we on, man? Like, we're running around,
we got a jalopy
going backwards, we got a jalopy. Like, no,
it's awful. It's awful. No. It really is. And
excuse my cough.
And so I'm hearing predictions out of from people in the Austrian School of Economics that are namely Peter Schiff, one of the ones who accurately predicted the crash of 2008 and other economic predictions. He's talking about quantitative easing coming back at the Fed level next year. Now, quantitative, not quite at the level that it was previously, not 0% forever, but he is predicting that the interest rates will come down next year. Now, if the Bank of Canada doesn't get the economy in order in Canada at this time, when they bring their interest rates down, and what will happen to us with high interest rates?
That would be...
we'll go into a crazy stagflation sort of it could be bad.
I'm an investor. I've already moved. Oh yeah, I've already moved everything I can to the U.S. God, if we're stuck in 6 or 7% and the U.S. manages to bring her back down to 1%, I'll move to the U.S., man. It'll be worth it.
Well, I saw an interview
in Arizona.
I saw an interview with Peter Schiff, and he was saying no, it'll never go down to 1%, but we could see 150 basis points going down early next year, that kind of thing. And it's not unrealistic to see that coming from the Federal Reserve, especially with the economy the way you're describing it, and the way it has been kind of bouncing back after the COVID downturn. This is and the supply chain issues, but Canada is not bouncing back.
What works best for Canada is when we're like slightly more attractive than the US. Not a lot, but we need to be a little bit, they're a huge economy. So the way we compete with them is we get a benefit from their economy. They do good, we do good, but we have to be a little bit better to attract, the capital, so that not everything starts to stall. But if they start to really go in one direction and we go in the other, that's going to be hard to catch up. Like Yeah, and again, I'm surprised. Like Tiff Macklin is a smart guy. I'm sure he's aware of this. I'm convinced that he's getting pressure from Trudeau and all sorts of other people. It's like we cannot, Trudeau needs some good news, and I don't know where it's coming from. It's not that he needs good news; he just doesn't need any more bad news. He has too much bad news. Like God, he's like, what good story came out today? I mean, what did he try to do today? He went to hide and he went to watch a hockey game and he applauded the women's hockey game. That's it. That's
that was at a women's hockey game. Okay, I saw that.
Yeah, it was a women's hockey game.
I saw the video. It was awful. But
yeah, we're making fun of him at every opportunity now. Like, oh my God. Yeah.
But I see some real tough choices that the Bank of Canada will have to make if the Federal Reserve goes in any direction, because they're kind of. My theory is that Tiff Macklin got this by a large surprise. Only just a year and a half ago, he was saying that we're going to stay in really low interest rates for a really long time. So buy that house, buy that property, buy that SUV, get all that stuff. And overnight, virtually overnight, we went to 5%. And that was devastating for a lot of people who just took out loans. People who had variable rate mortgages, and some of those rates are going to be resetting very soon. It's going to be bad news for those people. But if we go the other way and we start bringing interest rates down to peg our dollar at the United States dollar so that we don't have trade imbalances, what will happen there? We're just going to go right back into the bad behavior from before. And this is what they used to call stagflation. You have tremendous inflation and a stagnant economy. That's no good. It's going to be, we'll lose another decade in Canada if we go that direction.
Yeah. No. Not a good story. And these are things like every month I have a list of things I want to go look at, and data, and this is definitely one of the, actually related to this, one of the things I'm really looking forward to in the coming weeks is the Bank of Canada's annual report. That's going to be ugly. I mean, the Bank of Canada had lost in the first 3 quarters, lost $5.5 billion. I got a sick feeling that there are going to be some huge losses for the end of the year. And maybe they'll hide that too, because I'm telling you, I go on the internet right now and I'm absolutely shocked at how much stuff is disappearing from the internet, right? Like not just David Limetti's bank accounts, or a Twitter account. Last week, I went looking for excess deaths. Like excess deaths is something that's reported every month in Canada. And last month, the tables are there, but they haven't been updated, and the excess deaths has been deleted from the table. I'm like, that's like, what are you guys doing? And then the RCMP report on crime. Tucker talked about that yesterday, right? The crime in Canada is as high as it's been, and every year the RCMP used to put out a nice report, but now it's been 2 years and they're not putting out the report because the report is damning. It shows the failure of policy. Excess death shows the failures of the mandate. The RCMP report shows the failure of the gun grab. The Bank of Canada report and the interest rate shows the failure of the fiscal policy. Budgets don't balance themselves. Like it's bad news everywhere, and they're trying to hide the bad news. You and I are going to keep digging. Others are going to keep digging, and Trudeau can't hide. They can't hide. They can't run on their track record. That's
Well, the good news is that people are waking up to this, and people are coming out in droves. People are making themselves visible, because look at all the people that we met that are online, or typically anon accounts, and don't really put themselves out there that much. They're way more willing to come out and say, this is my opinion, this is how I feel, and guess what? It's normal. And there's a lot of us. There's a lot of us with these opinions, and you try to cry bully us. You try to browbeat us, and forget it. We're done with it. We're sticking together, and there's more of us than there is of you.
Yeah, and we're going to keep. Actually, one of the strategies I like, and I've employed, and I think we need to do it a little bit more, is I like to pick on an individual MP once in a while. I want to pick on Guilbeault for a while. I want to pick on Guilbeault. I want him to feel uncomfortable. That's what I'm telling everybody. Let's pick on Guilbeault so that he feels it, because really uncomfortable, and then we'll go from there. God.
Well,
hey, we had lots to talk about.
I'm definitely
impressed.
on board with that.
I'm looking at myself fuzzy. I'm sorry to the viewers. Marty lives in the country. The internet is slow today, but it is a reflection of how I feel. I admire Tucker and Jordan Peterson, guys who are academics who can talk all the time. I don't know how they do it. Kudos to them. Kudos to you too, man. You do this every day. Like, I'm tired right now. This was I had to push through on this one, but it's for a good cause, man. We gotta retake control of our country.
We do, and if we have to ridicule particular MPs one at a time and really lambaste them, here's a great way you can do this, especially with Guilbeault. I don't know how you're supposed to pronounce it. I just say Guilbeault. It makes sense for me. But this is the shirt that I have on my online store. It's ecological, not environmental. Emphasis on the logical, not mental. This is the idea that we can actually care about the environment and not be bat crazy. We can actually care about these things, and we can put effort into actually cleaning up our local environments, clean up the whole world. We can do this with technology. We don't have to do this by impoverishing people. I mean, what are the actual policies that they're putting forward?
I mean, it's a great way to end, I think, tonight's show. This was what Jordan Peterson talked about when he was asked about the WEF, the World Economic Forum, right? He said Klaus Schwab and those guys view the world as a pie, an economic pie that's limited, that has to be carved out, and he's blaming too many people. And his answer is, we need less people. And fair warning, right? When Klaus Schwab thinks we need less people, who does he think of? Not himself, others. But then, and Jordan spun it completely a different way, that, I agree. The pie is not limited, and humans are extremely creative. And if you put humans together creatively, we will solve the problems and keep prospering. Like, it's holding us back is not the solution. The solution is actually to unleash us. Just let us go, man. Just let us go, and we'll solve the problems. That's one of the things I've said so many times. I just want the politicians to get the hell out of the way. Just get out of the way. Get out of the way. Get out of the way, man. Yeah, get out of the way.
Well, I've said it before, where I think the best government is the relationship you have with your government should be the same relationship you have with a good landlord. A good landlord you never hear from, and the rents never go up, and that's it. He doesn't bother you about what's going on in your house. He doesn't say, I don't like the drapes you're wearing, you're hanging. He doesn't say any of that stuff. And you treat the place good, and you don't destroy the place, and then he leaves you alone, and everything's good. That's the best relationship you'd want.
100% agreed. 100%.
All right, Marty.
Awesome.
Where can people find you?
Sleeping in my bed. Marty Up North on YouTube and Marty Up North on Twitter. Yeah. It was so fun meeting some of your followers yesterday, man. You got some cool followers. I almost feel like throwing out some names, but we won't. But you have some cool followers. Really cool.
Some
Thanks
really
for
cool
coming
people.
out, folks.